Hello and welcome to another edition of Buckeye Banter. We tell the stories of former Ohio State athletes, and I have a very pivotal person in the history of Ohio State men's basketball here in Jamar Butler. Jamar, thanks for taking some time.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Seth. Really appreciate it.
Well, as I said, very pivotal, I believe, and we'll get to it in a moment. You came in just as Thad Matta arrived, and
Yes,
certainly we all have fond memories of those days. But let's start a little bit earlier. I believe you were born September 27th, 1985, in Lima, Ohio. You went to
yes,
Shawnee High School. Tell me about growing up there, and obviously Greg Simpson and some other folks up in that area.
yeah.
You're right there with them, Mr. Basketball eventually. What was it like to grow up in Lima?
Growing up in Lima was great. It was always been known as a basketball town, and coming up, my father, who put the ball in my hands, he was a coach, and so I was always around the game. And like you mentioned, Greg Simpson. We also had Aaron Hutchins.
Mm-hmm.
I followed these two guys. They were like my big brothers. I idolized these guys coming up, and like when Greg Simpson, I remember him getting the Mr. Basketballs,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a goal I set at a very young age that I wanted that Mr. Basketball like Greg Simpson got. So growing up in Lima, just the atmosphere as far as basketball, like I can name many names. I can go on for days, and it's just a basketball town. So it was great growing up in Lima, Ohio.
I knew a guy from up there, and he always said, "I'm from L.A." And I'm like,
Uh,
"L.A.?" And he goes, "Yeah, Lima area."
right. Yeah. That's all like that Lima area. It's
That's right.
the surrounding schools around there. It's always good basketball.
Well, hey, your senior year, you averaged 31.6 points a game with
Mm,
8.3 assists. I saw on your Facebook page there's a TV sports report with where Jim O'Brien, the coach at the time, was in attendance
mhm.
to watch you play. Tell me about being recruited, and I believe I remember this pretty well. It came down to like Cincinnati and Ohio State, right?
Yeah, it did. I committed to Cincinnati at a very young age. It was after my freshman year, going into my sophomore season. I committed to Cincinnati, and big part of that, me and one of my best friends growing up, Matt Terwilliger, who was my teammate at Ohio State. We wanted to go to school together. We
Mm-hmm.
played summer ball together from eighth grade all the way up, and I remember he was thinking Cincinnati, so I committed. And I was at a top 100 camp, and one of the guys called me over and said, "You're here at Terwilliger. He committed to Ohio State." So that summer we were in Vegas, and it came down. We wanted to go together, so I remember making a phone call. We were in the hotel room in Vegas. I told Jim O'Brien I want to come to Ohio State, and he said, "What I don't want to do is re-recruit you." He said, "I recruited you once. You committed to Cincinnati. I gave him my word. I'm coming," and that's pretty much how that all went down.
Remind me, where did Terwilliger go to high school?
Troy,
That's right. That's right.
yeah,
Okay.
Troy,
Absolutely. And he was definitely a constant in the program as well.
right,
Now, you're recruited there by Jim O'Brien,
yes,
and you've kind of already answered a little bit, I guess, since you were so close with Matt.
hmm
But you come into school, and all of a sudden there's a new coach. It was the summer of '04, very late. Ohio State seems to be these last two or three coaches. They
right,
tend to like Thad got let go a little late, and then
hmm
obviously Holman got let go early during the
hmm
season. But Coach O'Brien got relieved of his duties there in June, I believe, of '04. And actually, I
yeah,
remember going on my honeymoon wondering who's the coach and
right.
all that back then. But what was it like though? Did you have any doubts? I know it wasn't the same as now, as where you can just jump around as easy.
Right.
But what were your thoughts when he got let go and then Coach Mata gets hired?
Well, when that happened, I was the same way. I'm like, who was the coach going to be? And it was a crazy time because the day O'Brien got fired was my first day of class.
Oh
So I
yeah.
had already enrolled. I signed the attendance sheet. I was a student at Ohio State now. So if I want to transfer, I have to sit a year at that
Mm,
time. I would have had to sit a year. So I don't want to say I was stuck, but it was a crazy situation where it was like, well, I don't know who the coach is going to be. Who am I going to play for? And then I found out it was going to be Coach Mata. And the moment I found out it was going to be Coach Mata, I mean, it was a no-brainer. It wasn't an issue. He recruited me when he was at Xavier, so kind of knew the kind of guy he was. I knew the kind of coach he was. I knew his history. He had at Butler and Xavier. I knew we had a good coach coming in. So I really wasn't worried once I found out it was him. And what he did at Ohio State, I mean, the rest is
Yeah,
history, you know.
absolutely. It ended up great. Now, your freshman year, that was a little upsetting at the time, right? I believe because you weren't allowed to go to the NCAA tournament.
Right.
And, here you come in and the roster's kind of in flux a little bit,
Hmm.
but you average 19 minutes a game. Obviously, the big shot that Matt Sylvester hit against Illinois was the
Right.
crowning achievement of that season. You win 20 games.
Hmm.
Take me through kind of freshman year, but there's a lot of upheaval in the program. Did Coach Matta kind of settle things down pretty quickly?
He did. From the moment he stepped on campus, he had his saying, we're going to do things the Ohio State way. And his thing was we weren't going to be outworked. And we knew the work we were putting in, day out. And it was almost like a calming effect, like you said, that he put on the entire program where he made you feel comfortable, like you were in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what he was doing from the moment he stepped on that campus. And he took it over. And like I say, you look at his record when he was there, everything he did when he was there, it speaks for itself. Like he was a player's coach, a father figure to all of us, and just someone you could turn to in any situation.
Yeah, I guess what did it do as far as what you expected? Because here you are averaging almost 32 points a game as a high school senior. You come into a situation at Division I, Big Ten basketball. Did it kind of meet your expectations, or were you a little
It was
shocked to just be the game?
honestly a little shocked because I'll never forget my first Big Ten game. It was at Illinois, and he put me in the game. I catch the ball, turn around, and D Brown's there waiting on me. He's
Yeah.
talking to me, so I'm like, look around, orange, all this orange going crazy. I'm like, okay, this is what it's all about. And it was almost like a deer in the headlights. But as the season went on, I kind of calmed down, and I had a rocky freshman season. I didn't shoot the ball well. I had the minutes, but that came just from being a backup, playing good defense, and just transporting the ball. So my freshman year was a little rocky. It was a big change for me because I was used to scoring the basketball.
That's right.
Then I came into my freshman year at Ohio State, and my role was changed. So it was kind of you adjust to get the minutes, do what you have to do to be on the court.
Yeah, it's an eye opener. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about the Thad Five here in a few minutes. Like, not everybody walks on campus and is Greg Oden or Jared Sullinger. Like I have to remind friends of mine of that sometimes. Like I remember when Caleb Weston came, he looked a lot like Jared Sullinger. And he's a great player at Ohio State, but at the same time, hey, there's going to be some growing pains for most freshmen. That's just how it is.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, your sophomore year, you and the team turned it on. You averaged 10.1 points, 4.6 assists a game, but the team goes 26-6. You're 12-4 in the Big Ten. You won the regular season in the Big Ten. Just tell me about the difference. Coach Matta kind of used that Illinois win. If people forget, Illinois was undefeated last game of the regular season there in your freshman year when you beat them. So he kind of used that as kind of a jumping off point, I believe, and then you go into a great second year.
Absolutely. That year, that was my favorite year at Ohio State there.
Yeah.
Going into that season, they had us pick second to last and finish in the Big Ten. We had no expectations going in, but I do remember the off season where Coach Dave Richardson, our strength and conditioning coach, we worked so hard and we were all so close and tight. We just had a brotherhood about us that, like I said before, you aren't going to outwork us. And we came into that season with the chip on our shoulders. We almost felt disrespected. And somebody who's not mentioned much in Ohio State about Jaquel Foster.
That's right.
He was by far, hands down, the best leader I've ever played with to this day. He was just a hard-nosed, tough leader, captain. He wasn't going to ask you to do anything he doesn't do himself. He brought it every single day. And we all kind of piggybacked on that. And we just worked and ended up winning the Big Ten that year, which was a big surprise. Number 2 seed in the tournament, and then we got beat in the second round by Georgetown.
You did. You beat Davidson in the first round. That was in Dayton, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I got to go over to those games here from Columbus. But again, you won the regular season. Back then, that meant so much more than it does now. Winning the Big Ten was seriously an accomplishment. And listen, I want to ask you about this because you mentioned Jaquel, and pound for pound, as tough as they get, right? He wasn't the biggest guy, but he was tough as nails. You've got Terrence Dials, J.J.
Mm-hmm.
Sullinger, Matt Sylvester. We mentioned Jaquel
Mm-hmm.
Foster. They're like seniors, but everybody in Columbus and even around the country, like it was hard to watch a game on TV without mentioning Greg Oden and Mike Conley and Daquan Cook and all the guys we'll talk about in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Was that stressful at all, or is that kind of like, hey, what about us type feeling at times?
I wouldn't say it was stressful. We just it was almost like we were waiting. Like I knew I was waiting on her to get there because I was returning. I knew we were
Yeah,
going to be special the
that's right.
next season. So it wasn't stressful. We were locked in on what we were doing at that time, and that was trying to survive in advance in March. That's what we were trying to do at that time. That's when all the talk started coming about, when their commitments came in. So we were just locked in the moment that we were in at that time. And then after the season is when it kicked into high gear, and it was like, okay, these guys are coming, and
Sure.
we knew we were going to have something special.
Well, it was really funny to me. Terrence Dials was one of my favorite Buckeyes, even from
Mm-hmm.
his freshman season. But it was interesting against Georgetown. Roy Hibbert was so big,
Yeah.
and some of those other guys, right? And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, just wait until we get these other guys in here next year. We'll
Right.
see what happens, and we'll get there in a minute. Spoiler alert: you got to play them again, so we'll talk about that here in a minute. But that year was very affirming for Coach Matta. Did it prove to you also, like, hey, I belong here. I'm ready to go.
For sure. I just knew at that time. I knew I made the right decision going to Ohio State. And
Absolutely.
I got to play in a Final Four national championship game. I won 2 Big Ten titles, a Big Ten tournament championship. Those are careers players dream of. You
Mm,
know, I can't put into words like as a player in college to go and play at all those different levels and high level games, what that meant and the
yeah.
feeling. You know, I got goosebumps now even talking about it. So I was truly blessed and to have Coach Mata and making the decision to go to Ohio State.
Now we had to talk a little bit about your junior year. Obviously, we're going to talk grander about the results of that year, but
Mm-hmm.
going into it, listen, I remember I had a conversation with a guy back home
Mm-hmm.
where I grew up, and it was like, hey, Jamar Butler's the point guard. I don't care who this Mike Conley is,
Right.
but Mike came in, and it was like, well, wait a minute. How did that happen for you as far as accepting it? And hey, you were a great two guard as well, but with Mike coming in and kind of took over the ball handling, things like that for the most part, was that tough for you, or how did you adjust to that?
It was tough at first because I had played the point guard my entire life, and I'm thinking, sophomore, I'm a point guard on the team, just won the Big Ten,
That's
number
right.
2 seed, and my position gets changed, and it was a tough adjustment. So going into that, I'm like, well, and I'm one. If you flat out just dominate me every day in practice and you take my spot, hey, you earned it, you got it. Wasn't the case. It was kind of like handed,
Uh
and
huh.
I moved over to the 2, and how do you complain when you're the number 1 team in the country? You winning championships. So it was one of those things where it made us all around a better team, collectively a
Good.
better team. It made us better. And like I said, we were number 1 team in the country. We're winning games, we're winning championships. So it was a tough adjustment, but as far as the way everything went, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change the way it went down at all. Because like I said, I got to play in the Final Four, national
Sure.
title. And I built friendships and relationships with these guys, my teammates, that we still have a bond to this day.
Well, listen, your scoring went down a little to 8.5 a game, but that
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't say that your output went down, because like the number of guys that could score
Mm-hmm.
like went up exponentially. Like you still had Ron Lewis, and then
Right.
you're adding guys like Odin, Cook, Lighty, Conley. Like all these guys scored some too, although Lighty
Mm-hmm.
was more of a defensive stopper on that team. He would go
Right.
on to score more later. But yeah, Conley, Greg Oden, Greg was the guy that everybody knew about, right? Because
Right.
how big he
Right.
was and all that. And then here you come in with this point guard that he was teammates with growing up. Daquan from Ohio, but played with them in AAU, as well as David
Mm-hmm.
Lighty and then Othello Hunter. What a glue guy for him to come in as a
Right.
transfer. Um, Tell me a little bit about that group, and what was that like when they stepped on campus? Was it instantly kind of, hey, they're really good, or did they have to kind of grow into their roles as well?
Oh no, that was instant. They were instantly dominant and good. Greg Oden, he did what he did. I mean, he was freak of nature, 7'1", over a 30-inch vertical with a 7'1" wingspan. Like he was Greg, but the Mike did his thing as well. Like he's one of those guys. He makes everyone around him better. He's just a floor general, and he made everyone around him better. But the most talented out of that entire group to me was Daquan Cook.
Yeah.
My goodness, you roll the ball out there and tell him to go get a bucket, he's going to go get one. He was just so skilled and so smooth, and one of the best scorers I've ever played with. And like you said, you mix David Lighty into that. His defense is nasty. That year I became a 3-and-D guy is what I like to say. Mm-hmm. So like everybody just fell into their roles, and then said Othello Hunter to go with Greg Oden, then Ivan Harris. Like it was just Ron Lewis. You can go on and on and on.
That's right.
Like, it was a very loaded team. We were deep, and everyone had to buy into a role for it to work. And that's another thing Coach Matta was good at, is getting you to buy into what he needed out of you. And everyone was bought in. We're on the same page, and that's what made that year so special.
Well, and that was the first year or two that they went back, or they made the rule of one and done, where you couldn't leave out of high school to go to the pros. Obviously, we believe Greg probably would have gone straight to the NBA.
Right.
But in that time, since the mid-2000s to now, there's been very few teams that can roll out like 4 or 5 or 6 freshmen and win the whole thing. I think of UK back in 2012 with Anthony Davis. They kind of did it with John Calipari. But the fact that you brought along Ron, yourself, Ivan Harris, who, he was McDonald's All-American, right? Fit in well on this team. You guys had to be there, I think, to have the success. You go 35-4. Mm-hmm. But talk about the experience factor when you add in all those young guys.
Yeah, like we have been through it before. We played in the tournament the year before. We won the Big Ten championship the year before. So we have been through it. And that year, honestly, Ron Lewis was the one he was the vocal guy. He was that captain. Me, I was one who I showed it by my effort in practice. Like I showed it by how I played. But Ron was the vocal one, and again, Mike Conley, he stepped in, and you can say he was a captain, honestly, because the way he was vocal and the way he set the table the way it needed to be set, the way he brought it every day in practice. We have more than just the seniors and juniors that we could say that were leaders and captains. We were all on it. You came to practice, you wouldn't know who it was.
That's true.
You're going to hear 10 other voices. Everybody's clicking. Everybody's bought in. Everybody could talk to each other, can take constructive criticism. So it was a hard, tough-nosed team with captains across the board.
Well, again, you 35-4 record, finished the regular season number 1 in the country in the AP poll, won the Big Ten regular season and tournament. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really amazing. And Oden missed the first 7 games because he had a broken hand or wrist or something like that. Yeah. And in that first 7 games, you had that tough loss at Carolina. Yeah. I kind of wish he could have played in that. And I remember his first game. I'd heard whispers being in the media. I had a couple friends on the beat. I was like, I'm going to go down there and watch this. Mm-hmm. And you play Valpo, who, incidentally, I think Jake Diebler was on that team. He's now the Ohio State coach.
Right.
And just to see Greg Oden out on the floor was something else. Mm-hmm. And that actually reminds me, though, I got to ask you, this is the era of the biggest, longest shorts ever.
Right.
They got more and more baggy and long. And
yes, they did.
And then it was funny when you guys went to the tournament. Now, I want to talk about a regular season highlight as well, but you guys made it to the tournament, and Nike issued those new uniforms. Mm-hmm. And it was a little more understated across the chest, just Ohio State with your number. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't having all the stuff on it that the other regular uniforms did. But they were also snugger up top, and yet the shorts were so long and baggy.
Right.
But you guys thought that was the best at the time, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. We were, hey, can I get my shorts a size bigger? Coach, I need a size bigger. The shorts couldn't get big enough. And then I really didn't like the top. I felt like
they were so snug.
Yeah, I couldn't raise up the shoe. Everything was tight. But now you look, like I'm coaching high school ball here now, and my boys, they fight for the smallest shorts.
That's right.
It's like what's
going back to Larry Bird.
Right.
Well, and the funny thing was, I remember the Mitch Albom book about the Fab Five. That's when this all started. Well, it's kind of started with Jordan, right? But But the Fab Five, Jalen Rose went to the center and said, "Trade me shorts."
Yeah.
He's like, I want those shorts that are bigger, and that's kind of how that started. One of the highlights of that regular season, 49-48, very low scoring game. Wisconsin had gotten you at their place, but you beat them at home. I remember Brian Butch suffered that injury in that game. It's hard to say a score in the 40s for each team is exciting to watch, but my goodness, you've got to remember that game, and a lot of us fans did too.
It was a dogfight from the tip.
Yeah.
And we knew how Wisconsin and how they played, they were going to try to slow us down because we like to get out in transition. So it was almost like a chess match. We're trying to go fast. They're trying to slow down. They ran that swing offense. They would run 28 seconds off the shot clock every single time, shoot with 5 seconds left. And so it was a dogfight, half court game. I mean, guys bleeding. It was definitely a tough, hard fought game. They had Orlando Tucker.
Yep, that's right.
And he was just a dog in the paint at 6'5". He playing like he's 6'11".
Yeah.
And he was their everything to go with. I think it was Cam Taylor. I think it was his name. And
that's right.
They Butch, and they had shooters and size, and they were just as hard nosed as we were. So that's a game that I'll never forget.
Yeah. Again, if you haven't seen it, go look for it on YouTube. Hard to believe a game in the 40s could be so thrilling. I think Conley hit the runner in the paint to win the game.
Yeah.
Just amazing. And hey, you got to take care of them again in the tournament. So you did take 2 out of 3 from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You go into the NCAA as a number 1 seed. Second round, though, you find yourself in trouble against Xavier.
Right.
And of course, that's Ron Lewis's high school teammate at Brookhaven. Lavender's on that team. And again, Sean Miller coached under coach. There's so many ties. Miller with head coach with Coach Matta. Tell me a little bit about that game. And it was pretty scary. And I actually, before you talk about it, there's a funny conjecture around Ohio State fans. If you lose that game, Mike Conley might stay.
Yeah.
Because his tournament run after that was so amazing. It got him to the number 4 pick overall. And now he's had this great career. He's still in the league.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about that game, and then just how thrilling it was. Ron Lewis hit the 3, and then Conley took over in overtime.
Yeah, I mean, I looked up and I see how much time's left. I see how many we're losing by, and I'm like this really is gonna end right here. And I think I hit a 3. I think Daquan hit a 3. Someone else hit it. Then we were right back in it, and I'll never forget they missed the free throw, and we had a design coming out of that, like what we were gonna do if they missed the free throw.
Right.
And the way it went down was not the plan. And we came down and Mike flipped it to Ron, and Ron raised up from deep, and he pulled up. I'm just looking like, oh, he has to hit this. And he hit it. But I asked Ron, I'm like, what made you pull up and shoot that? And his response, I'm a senior. He's like, I'm going to take this shot. So, and he hit it. So it ended up working out. But that game, again, from that's another one to go back and watch from tip to end. There was so many lead changes and back and forth. It was a high intensity game for sure.
And I think Greg eventually fouled out, and then the other side of that was the Xavier folks were screaming because they thought he shoved the guy out of bounds, trying to box him out.
And then the overtime, Mike Conley just completely took the overtime over.
Points, right?
Yeah, he took the overtime over himself. All floaters in the paint.
Yeah. Well, so sometimes I inject my own personal stories into these conversations, and I'm a writer at Suburban News, a little local paper, but we covered Brookhaven, at the time, and so we had covered both those guys. And I got a press pass to come down to Lexington to watch the game and cover the game and write a story about the 2 Brookhaven guys and about you guys. And I ended up I covered DeSales here locally, and they were playing a regional down in Athens. And my editor said, no, you have to go cover DeSales. And I'm like, what are we talking about here, man? This is a matchup. And so I go to DeSales, the game's over. And at Ohio University, they had these awful, it's kind of like Purdue in the corners. Remember Daktronics scoreboards?
Right.
Purdue at Mackey had those low ones down by the floor.
Yeah.
They had that they could put TV on, but you could barely see what it was.
Right.
But I can still remember Gus Johnson Lewis, he's been awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then, we just go crazy. And of course, we're at Ohio University, but there's lots of Buckeyes down there. And
Yeah,
my goodness, what a game.
yeah.
But it
And
didn't
like
end there. You guys had to play a very tough Tennessee team, Bruce
it
Pearl.
did.
And that's an 85-84 win. And you talk about Wisconsin being tough.
Right.
Tennessee brought it, and they wanted to get down the ditch with you, didn't they?
They did. They did. They were tough. They had Chandler down there, Jawan Smith, and Chris Lofton. Oh my goodness! Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was assigned to him, and I'm talking. I did every trick in the book. I would rub his wrist, pat his elbow when he shot. I did I was right on him, and no matter what, he was just still draining them.
He
And
was filthy.
that was. I remember going into halftime. We were down. I think 15, 17. It
It was
was.
bad, yeah.
Yeah, we were down bad, and but the feeling in the locker room, Ron Lewis stood up. We're going to be fine. He said, we're fine. Let's go out, do what we do. We got to throw the first punch in the first half, the second half. And we came out, I think we went on a quick 8-0 run. And then once we took the lead, I still remember the last play. Forget who they came. And Ron Lewis got the block. Or was
Yeah.
it Greg?
Well,
One of them
Greg,
got
I think Greg, that might have been the one that Greg blocked it out of bounds.
Yeah. Greg
Didn't they
got
have
the
wasn't his name Chisholm?
Yeah, Wayne
Headman?
Chisholm. Yeah,
Yeah.
He blocked the shot and again, March survive in advance. That's what that came down to. And another game to go back and watch. It was a
Yeah.
hard, tough fought battle and all the way down to the wire. And the comeback we made in the second half was unbelievable.
And isn't that the game, maybe early second half, where David Lighty hit like 2 threes, either from the
Mm-hmm.
wing or the base or the
Mm-hmm.
corner? And again, David was known that year as more of a defensive guy on the
Yeah.
wings. He had such long arms. He
Mm-hmm.
would become a great penetrator of the basketball in his
Right.
career at Ohio State, which spanned
Mm-hmm.
4+ years because he broke his foot early in his junior year, I
Right.
believe. But yeah, he hits the 2 threes, I think, in that game to really help you guys come back.
But Dave Lighty, that entire tournament run he didn't get a bunch of credit, but he was our lockdown guy on D. We knew
Yeah.
when he came in, he was going to do his job on the defensive end. And like I said, that's something you don't see in the papers, you don't see in the highlights. But Dave Lighty was a huge factor to what we did the entire season. Another guy, energy low in practice, he'll get it going. He was high energy, had a high motor. Like he brought it every day as well.
Well, and listen, he stayed the whole time, unlike the guys that could go pro.
Mm-hmm.
But even Coach Matta, I don't think he was joking. He said he wanted to build a statue of David Lighty outside the shot. I mean,
Honestly, if you're going to, he's one that would be out there for
sure.
sure. Just everything he did at the university, he stuck with it. He graduated. He did everything the right way. That's what
right.
David Lighty did. He did everything the right way and the professional way.
Still playing in France too.
Yeah,
So
still being a pro's pro.
So listen, you've put us fans through the ringer. I mean, that Xavier game, again, we can't lose to Xavier. We hired their coach.
Right.
We stole their coach. We can't lose that game.
Right.
And then so now we got to sweat through this Tennessee game. And listen, you're the number 1 seed, really probably the number 1 overall seed if they talked about like that back then. And it's like, wait a minute, why do we have to play these guys? Tennessee was good. And then all of a sudden you got to go against Calipari and those guys at Memphis. That's a 92-76 win, Jamar, but that game was close with them leading early, and us fans were just kind of nervous wrecks throughout that whole time.
Like you said, that was a 16-point win, but it was a lot closer. A lot of that was free throws at the end from them fouling, desperation threes at the end, and us. So, I mean, that game was a lot tighter, and on paper, to me, that was the best team we played all year. If you looked at it on paper, they were deep. They were long, they were nasty, tough, and big. They had Joey Dorsey, they had Douglas Roberts, they had Dozier. Like they were big.
Yes.
Where we got them at was a zone defense we put in that week. Coach Matta put it in with a couple different rotations. I'm not gonna say anything just in case he's still using it now at Butler. But it was a design zone where we rotated different, and we started using it in the second half at a certain point in the game, and that was the game changer right there. We got some crucial stops at the end and executed on the offensive end late in the game, knocked down our free throws, and again, Mike Conley Jr. I mean, what else can I say? He took over that game and led us to another victory.
Well, speak to that a little bit on the coaching side. It wasn't just Coach Matta. You had a good staff as well.
Oh yeah.
But it's one thing to recruit the studs, the great players like you guys did, obviously that year specifically, but you still had you and your other teammates that had been there for a few years. But to implement a plan, and obviously, that was only a 1-day turnaround.
Yeah, quick
From
turnaround.
Tennessee to Memphis.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that coaching staff, Coach Matta specifically, to be able to not only recruit but also really do the X's and O's up really well.
Oh man, they didn't sleep. They would never. I mean, like that turnaround, I can remember, and I'm gonna say the best X and O coach I've ever played for, been a part of in my life, John Gross, Coach Gross. He was, oh my goodness, phenomenal when it came to game planning and game prep, and he would never sleep. I mean, he lived off Starbucks. He just used. I mean, you walk in his office, he's got 6 Starbucks cups and film on, and his head down, and he's asleep. He falls asleep at the office. So that the hours, that's what people don't see as well. The hours these coaches put in, especially on quick turnaround games, like 1-day turnaround, you have to have an entire another game plan. And then for the players as well on the quick turnaround. Okay, this game's over. We got to lock in right now. Like we're talking 2 hours after the Tennessee win, we're watching film on Memphis back at the hotel.
Right.
And preparing. And then the next morning, breakfast, more film. Then we got the shoot around practice where we're going to go over. That's when the zone was put in. So the zone was put in 30 minutes.
Wow.
With that rotation, and that's having that high caliber players with IQ, he was able to do that. Coach Matta was able to do that, and they installed that zone, and we picked up on it, we executed it, and got us to win.
John Gross had a lot of success at Ohio, had the Illinois job for a while, doing great things at Akron now.
Yes, he is.
So, and Coach Bowles is back at OU. He had coached for Coach Matta at Ohio State. So a lot of local flavor there. Now, we mentioned earlier, you lost to Georgetown the year before in the second round.
Yep.
Jeff Green, just a good wing player, right? Just
size,
but also speed and shooting. You go to the Final Four, and that's a whole buildup, right? I mean, you play on the weekend against Memphis, probably I think a Saturday night, and now all of a sudden you're not going to play till the whole week later. You come home to great fanfare here in Columbus, and listen, people. Ohio State men's basketball right now, as far as support, as far as fan support and numbers, isn't the best. As far as like we don't fill up the Schottenstein Center like we used to, things like that. But listen, during those times, this is year 3 of Coach Matta building something.
Right.
I mean, the support was there as it was back in 1999 when Coach O'Brien took a team to the Final Four. You've got a whole week of everybody patting you on the back. You got people like me who didn't get to cover you all year. I came down to the shot for interviews before you got on a plane to fly to Atlanta. You got to deal with folks like us. And I talked to Danny Peters. He was Coach Dan Peters' son. He was a walk-on the team, played for New Albany here locally. Talked to Ron Lewis, talked to the local guys. Tell me about the week leading up to a Final Four, because that's something you can't prepare for without having done it.
It's a feeling you can't describe, kind of. It's like you don't, and Coach Matta did a great job of not letting us be content. Okay, we made the Final Four. That's not enough. There's still more work to be done. So it was almost like he gave us just enough time to do nothing, where he kept us busy. But the approach to it was, we tried to approach it like we approached any other game that we were preparing for that week. Did we do that? No. As the players were talking about, man, we're in the Final Four, like, we can't wait to get there. So we're just so anxious to get there to play. So it's hard to stay locked in on what we're trying to do to prepare before we get there. But the week leading up to it was kind of calm, honestly. Calm, easy shoot-around practices, and more just prep, like scouting reports. And each player was broke down. We had all their sets down. Like, so the week of it is more mental practices than the physical.
When you want to be a little more locked in, as far as if you overdo it physically, you might not have the legs, right? I mean, that's what that comes to in part. Now, listen, you get to play Georgetown again. Roy Hibbert now has a guy to bang into in Greg Oden.
Yes, sir.
A little bit different than the year before. And I guess, did that add to it, or when you're going to the Final Four, it doesn't matter who you play because you're going to the Final Four?
Well, it added to it for me, Ron Lewis, and Ivan Harris. So
Yes.
I would say it added to it for us because we knew what they did to us the previous season. They ended our year. And so, yeah, it was a little personal for us. But the other guys, it was just another game for them.
Sure.
Just another game for them. And Greg Oden, that game, the two games, he was so dominant in that
he was
Final
amazing.
Four.
Yeah.
My goodness. I think that's what solidified his number one pick because it's going to be him, it's going to be Durant. Like they were back and forth. After that weekend, we knew who the number one pick was going to be. That's how dominant he was. And he did it with he when he came back and played, a lot of people thought he was healthy. No, he had a soft cast on his right hand. He shot left hand free. Exactly.
Yeah.
So he did all this, and he didn't even have his right hand.
Right.
So that he was, oh my goodness, special. So having him to bang with Roy Hibbert, though, it changed everything because we had a 6'8" center in Terrence Styles the year before.
Right.
Well, now we got this freak of nature, Greg Oden, who's 7'1", who could probably jump over you. It's like it was night and day, and the way he dominated that game is the reason we won that game.
So I got to cover that game, and I was about foul line extended straight across from your bench. And we had – I don't think our photographer made the trip to Atlanta. So I brought my camera, and I ended up taking several pictures. And I actually got yelled at because you're only allowed to take pictures from underneath the basket. But I have a picture of him. It almost looked like a sky hook over Hibbert.
Yep.
And the ball's I think I got one of him on his big dunk. He had like a tomahawk as well. Yeah. And it's just to see it that close, right? I'm 2 rows up from the floor.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Yes, it was amazing. And you beat them 67-60. I covered the 99 Final Four. They lost in a close game to eventual champion UConn.
Right.
The Ohio State team did. And that locker room was almost content because they weren't expected to be there and all that.
Right.
But you guys were expected to win, and you did. And I remember that locker room afterward being almost somber. You guys weren't like happy to say this is an accomplishment. This was, we still got work to do.
Still work to do because we remember, I think it was Christmas Eve that year where Florida did to us on their home court. So
they got after you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So we sat and watched them play first, wanting them to win. And probably the best team we ever played against. I ever played against. And they just retired. They won the championship the year before.
That's right.
Same team came back, and they just they knew each other. They've been there, done it, but pretty much they just had a little bit too much. They had 3 bigs compared to our one dominant big.
That's right.
Horford, Noah, Spates.
They beat the UCLA team. They beat, right? Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love were on that team.
That team, bro. People forget Aaron Afalo.
That's right. He was really good. He was fun to watch.
Yeah, they were another deep team. They were really good.
This doesn't happen as much anymore because you don't get the guys staying, and maybe we will a little more with NIL and things like that. But you look at those 4 teams and the number of NBA and even professional basketball players on the floor.
Russell Westbrook came off the bench.
He did. You're right. But Florida, you play them, and you're talking about Al Horford and Joakim Noah, Corey Brewer. Yeah. I forget the freshman who was a big man for them.
Maurice Spates.
Maurice Spates, that's right. Yeah. Physically looked a lot like Greg, maybe even a little thicker. That's a team I mentioned earlier. You don't see one and done teams built to win in their only year as college teammates. I've always said, aside from maybe that 2012 Anthony Davis team at Kentucky, your team in 2007, if you could match up with almost anybody since that year, I think you win the national title, no doubt.
I think so as well. It just happened to be that Gator team.
And that Gator team, though, again, they brought everybody back in a world before collectives and NIL and all that. And Coach Donovan, right?
Oh, goodness. Great coach.
So talk about that game. And the frustrating thing for fans was if you just make 4 more outside shots, and that still wouldn't have equaled the number you averaged for the year, because I think you only made 4 of 16 or whatever it was threes, and you average 8 or 9 threes a game, or maybe even 10 or 11. If you just make 4 more shots, it's just that's got to be frustrating.
Something To this day, I think about. I have random days where it'll cross my mind or how close we were to doing it, or I know I shot the ball horrible that game. It just felt like everything was in and out, in and out, in and out. And to this day, like I said, it haunts me. Like if I just would have made a few more, or
Yeah.
we just would have did this or did that. Certain plays in that game I still remember, and it was tough. But I just try to tell myself, we made it, we got there. We got to play in the last game of the year against arguably one of the best college basketball teams ever.
I think you're
And
right. Yep.
and I mean, it's hard to beat one of the best basketball teams ever, So we were blessed to get there, but it was to this day, and I'm sure my teammates on that team tell you the same. They think about it. They still think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the fallout though,
Hmm.
you say goodbye to seniors.
Hmm.
So Ron and Ivan, right? They're gone.
Yeah, yeah,
And then Greg was we know Greg's leaving.
yeah.
Um, mentioned Conley. I don't know that he would have left had he not had that
Right.
overtime against Xavier in the games following.
Hmm.
And then you've got Daquan, who makes the decision to leave.
Right.
So you're coming back, and all of a sudden it had to feel very familiar because you're adding John Diebler, Evan Turner, Dallas Lauderdale, Eric Wallace, PJ Hill, and Costa Kufas.
Right.
You've got to welcome in all these freshmen again.
Yeah.
What was that season like for you individually, but also for the team? You end up 24-13, 10-8 in the league. It never felt like it came in sync.
It didn't come in sync. Like we were super young. We were young. I was coming back from the junior year in the run we had my senior year. I'm looking like, okay, we got Kufis, Diebler, Turner. We had some good guys coming in. I'm like, we should be decent. Will it be like the previous year? No. Will we have some work to do? Absolutely. But it was that was a long season. That was a
Yeah.
long season for me. It was tough, especially coming off the season we had prior. So that's what made it so tough. I just felt like we never came together as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had so many separate little cliques, or whatever you want to call it, to where we were never a team. Is what I want to say. We were never a team. We didn't have a good leadership across the board. I tried. I tried, but it was it's hard with a young group like that um, would struggle during games when the lights were on, was what I
Yeah.
would say. Practice, you come watch, oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you remember Diebler that year, he didn't shoot it very well his freshman year. I can relate to that. I kind of was the same way. End up being all-time leader in Big Ten history.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know what I mean? So it's almost if we'd have had one more year, to get them ready, I think we could have had something special again.
Well, and
For
Evan
sure.
Turner, eventual National Player of the Year, but it took
Yeah.
him. He was pretty raw coming in, I think.
Yeah, he
I
was, he
think
was very raw coming in, but I knew Evan was going to be something special as well. I remember telling him his freshman year he was going through it, and there was times where I'm quitting, I'm leaving, walking out of practice, and I'm like, Evan, you're going to be fine. Like,
that's right.
relax, just keep showing up,
Yeah.
doing your job. You're going to be fine.
And Costa
And
Kufis was so different too. Like he would let guys get past him and block him from behind. It was like
yeah,
that looks so weird.
he was a different. I wasn't used to playing with a big like him. The style he played, he wanted to
Mhm.
play on the perimeter.
Yeah.
I'm used to playing with Terrence Dials, where I can, he's a post player. He would jump hook in, and Greg
That's right.
Oden, same thing. He wanted to pick and pop and shoot threes. So that was an adjustment as well. But again, Costa was a special player,
He
7-footer
was.
who can handle it, shoot it. He was another special player.
He's one and done. So he,
Yeah,
he he definitely did a great job there.
absolutely.
You led the league in assists with 5.9 a game, and you averaged 15. You're first team All Big Ten as a senior.
Mhm.
That's got to be an accomplishment that you're proud of.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. It's an accomplishment for sure that I'm proud of. But I'd have been, well, I wanted another Big Ten title. Give me a Big Ten title.
Yeah.
The single accomplishments. I mean, it's great and all, but and again, that goes back to Matta. It was about us, not I. It's about us. Like we're like this. Everybody's going to eat. Is what we used to say.
Hmm.
You play unselfish, just play. Everybody's going to eat, and that's something Coach Matta did a great job of just having everybody just play together, unselfish basketball, and it led on through his entire career.
Now, before we shift to maybe post college, I meant to look this up, and I don't know if even I could find it. But did you have a double that year that was assists and rebounds?
Yeah,
Like you might have had 0 or 2 points in the whole game.
yeah.
But you had double-digit assists and rebounds. Do you remember who it was against, and what was that like?
Northwestern at home.
Okay.
Talk about frustrating, and I didn't know I had that many rebounds, that many assists. And I come in the locker room after the game. We won, but I'm still like, when's the last time I played a basketball game and didn't score a point? You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't score. No, I didn't even hit a free throw. You know,
That's
I'm
right.
like,
That's right.
what? I missed 2 free throws. I'm like, what's going on? And Coach Matta called me over. He said, look at your stat line. And I looked and I saw, he's like, you had a double-double. Okay. I felt a little better than he was like, and that's like, he said, that's just like, far as you don't have to score the ball to take over a game. He said, you took over that game. You didn't even score the basketball.
Yeah, I feel like I was at that game, and I was kind of in the end zone or in the corner. I'm looking at it. I'm like, this is a weird game because it just
it was very weird.
But that's you kind of bringing in the younger guys and facilitating and all that, and then for you to get rebounds like that, double-digit rebound game for a guard like you.
My only game at Ohio State where I had double-digit rebounds.
Well, hey, before I let you go, you played, I think, 4 or 5 years overseas.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? And certainly kids, even a kid like myself at one point thought, boy, I'd like to play in the NBA. Yeah. But I was never going to make it. But I know you had to be gratified to know you were a professional basketball player. What were those seasons like for you? And share that with us.
Honestly, that was some of the toughest years of basketball I played.
Yeah.
Because when you go to Europe to play, it's one of those situations you have to find the right team, the right situation, because you'll look at that contract and it'll look nice. You're like, oh, I'm getting paid to play the game I love, which is a blessing. You get paid to play, it's a blessing regardless. But you sign that contract and you get situations where you don't get paid, or the team 2 games before the end of the season will shut down and you don't hear from them. I've been in some situations where the team just disappears. GM, president of the team. So,
oh wow, yeah.
that was some of the toughest basketball and years of basketball that I had to play. But I did have a couple good countries like Serbia when I went and played for KK Eagle K. I won a championship there. That was great. Just the level of basketball, how hard those guys play. It's not like, I don't know how to explain it. They don't take plays off. They take pride. Every single possession matters. And it was some of the toughest basketball I played, as far as like on the court. It was definitely some of the toughest basketball I played there. Germany was a good place, and Italy. Those are the 3 countries where I can say it was a good high level basketball. But the toughest place, Puerto Rico. My goodness, like, it's guard city over there. There's nothing but guards over there. So, but the side of my professional career, I would like for it to be different, for it to go different. But at the same time, I can't blame. I made some mistakes myself that set back my career as well. So I can't. Like I said, I was blessed to play after college. Got to make a little money playing the game. So, I mean, I was blessed, but yeah, those are some of the darkest times in my basketball career.
Well, that's understandable.
Just being honest.
Yeah. Takes a lot of self-motivation, and especially places where they don't speak much English and things like that. That's right. People don't think of that enough.
You either love it,
yeah,
or you hate it. And I was one, I really didn't love Europe like that.
Sure. Okay.
Good place to visit for a couple of weeks, but to spend 10 months out of the year for 4 or 5 years, you'll be in some dark places at times.
Well, no doubt. Well, but I know you've done some coaching and training with young people. What's it like to share the game of basketball with kids now that you're a full-fledged adult and out of the game?
I love it. That's what I think my calling was. Like, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm director of sports at the Southwest Florida Wise in Venice, where I deal with nothing but the youth. I run basketball camps, clinics, I personal train. I have my own girls AAU basketball program, SOS Elite. and I'm also the head assistant varsity basketball coach at Venice.
Okay.
Which we probably the football program needs to get out here. We got a couple guys out here in Venice. I'm sure you know about Venice High School and their football.
Yeah.
Got a couple guys that might want to come check out.
Yeah, no doubt. I've actually local broadcaster here in Columbus, Neil Sika, they have a family home down in Venice.
Okay,
So,
awesome.
maybe he'll have to check you guys out and let the coaches up here know.
For sure.
All right. Well, hey, Jamar, thanks so much for all your time. It's been great catching up with you and getting to share your story again. You were kind of like a bridge between Coach O'Brien and Coach Matta, and between obviously that 06 Big Ten champion team and then the Final Four team the next year. You were one of the key guys to help make all this happen. So Buckeye Nation appreciates you, and I wanted to sit down and talk with you today and have these memories. It's been great.
I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Well, hey, check out everything on Buckeye Huddle. Buckeye Banter interviews are all available on YouTube and wherever you find audio podcasts. Thanks for tuning in.
Go Bucks.